There are moments in life when everything changes. Not gradually, not with warning, but in a single heartbeat. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday afternoon in October, delivered by a cheerful florist in a white van. I remember thinking how beautiful the day was, the kind of autumn day that makes you grateful to be alive. Golden light streamed through the kitchen windows of our home in Riverside Estates, catching the copper pots hanging above the island where I was chopping vegetables for dinner. Michael had texted an hour earlier saying he would be working late again. Third time that week. I had not thought much of it. He was a senior vice president at Hartfield Corporation, and late nights came with the territory. 22 years of marriage had taught me that much. The doorbell rang at 4:30 in the afternoon. I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel and walked through our living room, past the family photos that lined the hallway. Michael and me on our wedding day, both of us impossibly young. Our daughter Emma's graduation from Northwestern. Last summer's vacation in Napa Valley, Michael's arm around my waist, both of us smiling at the camera. Everything seemed perfect in those photographs. Everything seemed real. The delivery man stood on our porch holding an enormous arrangement of white roses, easily 3 dozen, maybe more, arranged in a crystal vase that must have cost a fortune. "Delivery for Claire Morrison," he said, his smile broad and uncomplicated. "That's me." I took the arrangement, surprised by its weight. "Thank you." He tipped his cap and returned to his van. I carried the flowers inside, setting them on the dining room table. The scent filled the room immediately, sweet and slightly overwhelming. White roses had always been my favorite. Michael knew that, but he had never been the type to send flowers without an occasion. Our anniversary was not until March. My birthday had passed in July. Maybe he felt guilty about all the late nights. I thought, maybe this was his way of apologizing. I reached for the small card nestled among the blooms. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive cardstock. I slid the card out, expecting Michael's familiar handwriting, or perhaps a printed message from the florist. What I found instead made my blood run cold. The card was handwritten in looping, feminine script. "Dear Claire, thank you so much for sharing Michael with us at the office. His dedication and late nights mean the world to our team. With gratitude, Jessica." I read it once. Then again, then a third time, my hands beginning to shake, sharing Michael. His late nights mean the world with gratitude. The words seemed innocent enough on the surface. A thoughtful gesture from a grateful employee, but something about the phrasing felt wrong, intimate. Too personal. What secretary sends expensive flowers to her boss's wife? What secretary thanks a wife for sharing her husband? I set the card down on the table and stared at the roses. They no longer seemed beautiful. They seemed like a message, a declaration, a mark of territory. Little did I know how right I was. My phone was on the kitchen counter. I picked it up and scrolled through my contacts until I found Michael's office number. I had not called him at work in months, maybe longer. He always said it was easier to text. Now I wondered why. The phone rang 3 times before a young woman answered. "Michael Morrison's office. This is Jessica speaking." Her voice was bright, efficient, professional. I imagined her sitting at a desk outside Michael's corner office, probably young and polished, the kind of woman who knew how to navigate corporate politics with ease. "Hi, Jessica. This is Claire, Michael's wife." I kept my voice steady, pleasant. "I just wanted to thank you for the beautiful flowers." "That was very thoughtful of you." There was a pause, just a fraction of a second, but long enough for me to notice. "Oh," she said, and something in her tone had changed. Less bright now, more careful. "You are welcome. I just wanted to show my appreciation. Michael has been such a mentor to me, and I know how much time he spends here." Mentor. The word hung in the air between us. "Yes," I said. "He certainly has been working a lot lately. Well, we are lucky to have him." Another pause. "Would you like me to transfer you to his office?" "I believe he is in a meeting, but I can interrupt if it is important." "No, that is fine. I will talk to him tonight." Thank you again for the flowers, Jessica. Of course. Have a wonderful day, Claire. I ended the call and stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Have a wonderful day. As if everything was normal. As if those flowers were just a kind gesture between colleagues, but my hands were still shaking. I walked back to the dining room and looked at the roses again. Examined them the way you might examine evidence at a crime scene. The arrangement was expensive, probably $200 or more. The vase was Waterford crystal. The card was from an upscale stationery boutique downtown. This was not a quick purchase from the grocery store florist. This had required thought, planning, money. What secretary spends that kind of money on her boss's wife? What secretary thanks a wife for sharing her husband? I pulled out my phone again and opened my text messages with Michael, scrolled back through the past few weeks. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. In a meeting, we'll call later. Dinner with clients, probably home around 11. The messages were brief, factual, consistent. Nothing seemed unusual when I had read them the first time. But now, looking at them with fresh eyes, I saw a pattern, a steady stream of excuses. A careful construction of absence. How long had this been going on? I sat down at the dining room table, the roses in front of me like an accusation. My mind raced through possibilities, trying to make sense of what I was feeling. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Jessica really was just a thoughtful employee. Maybe those late nights really were about work. But deep in my gut, in that place where women know things before they have proof, I knew the truth. Those flowers were not a thank you. They were a warning. Or maybe a taunt. A subtle way of saying, I know something you do not know. A way of marking her presence in my marriage. I thought about calling Rachel, my best friend since college. Rachel would know what to do. Rachel always knew what to do. But something stopped me. Once I spoke the words out loud, once I gave voice to my suspicions, everything would change. There would be no going back to the comfortable ignorance of this morning, when I had been chopping vegetables and planning dinner, blissfully unaware that my marriage was a lie. Instead, I sat there as the afternoon light faded and shadows lengthened across the dining room floor. I sat there with those white roses and that terrible card, and I let myself feel the full weight of what I was beginning to understand. Michael came home at 9:30 that evening. I heard his car in the driveway, the garage door opening, his footsteps in the mudroom. I was sitting in the living room with a glass of wine, the lights dim, the flowers still on the dining room table where he would have to see them. "Claire," he called out. "Sorry I am so late." The Hendricks meeting ran long and then Marcus wanted to go over the quarterly reports. He walked into the living room, loosening his tie, looking tired. He was still handsome at 52, silver at the temples now, a few more lines around his eyes, but fundamentally the same man I had married. Or so I had thought. "You got flowers," I said, keeping my voice neutral. He stopped, his eyes finding the arrangement on the table. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across his face. Surprise? Fear? It was gone too quickly for me to be sure. "Wow," he said, walking over to examine them. "These are beautiful. What is the occasion? Why don't you read the card?" He picked it up, and I watched his face carefully. Watched for the moment when he realized what he was looking at. His expression remained pleasant. Slightly confused. "From Jessica?" He set the card down. "That is sweet of her. She has been working really hard on the merger project. Probably wanted to thank both of us." "Both of us." I stood up, my wine glass in hand. "Why would your secretary need to thank me?" "I don't know." He shrugged, heading toward the kitchen. "Maybe because you have been understanding about all the late nights? You know how these big projects are. Everyone gets a little stressed." I followed him, watched him open the refrigerator, pull out a beer, his movements casual and familiar. He had done this 1,000 times before. Come home late, grabbed a beer, made small talk about his day. Nothing was different, except everything was different. "Michael," I said, and something in my voice made him turn to look at me. "How well do you know Jessica?" "Jessica?" He took a sip of beer. She has been my secretary for about 18 months, good at her job, very organized. Why? Does she normally send flowers to the wives of executives she works for? He laughed. Actually laughed. Claire, what is this about? Are you upset about flowers? I am upset about the message on the card. Thank you for sharing Michael with us. His late nights mean the world to our team. Does that not sound strange to you? It sounds like an employee who appreciates hard work. He set his beer down on the counter. You are reading way too much into this. Am I? I stepped closer to him because it feels very personal to me. It feels like someone is sending me a message. What message? His voice had an edge now, irritation creeping in. That I work too much? That is not exactly news, Claire. That you are having an affair. The words hung in the air between us. I had not meant to say them so directly. Had planned to be more subtle, more strategic. But standing there in our kitchen, looking at his defensive posture and practiced innocence, the words just came out. Michael's face went through several emotions in quick succession. Shock, anger, and something else. Something that looked like calculation. Are you serious right now? He said finally. You are accusing me of having an affair because my secretary sent you flowers? I am saying those flowers are strange. I am saying your late nights have been increasing. I am saying that card sounds like it was written by someone who knows you very well. This is insane. He grabbed his beer and walked past me toward the living room. I have been busting my ass at work for 22 years to give us this life. And now you are inventing affairs because you got flowers? I followed him again, my heart pounding. Then explain the card to me. Explain why a secretary would spend $200 on flowers for her boss's wife. How should I know? Maybe she is just really thoughtful. Maybe she appreciates that I have been mentoring her. Maybe not everything is a conspiracy. Claire? Or maybe she wanted me to know. I stood in the doorway, watching him sit down on the couch. Maybe she wanted to make sure I understood exactly what has been going on. Michael looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he shook his head and picked up the remote. I am not doing this tonight, he said. I am exhausted. I have been working 14-hour days. And I come home to accusations and paranoia. He turned on the television. If you want to be angry at me for working hard, fine, but I am not having an affair. And I am certainly not discussing this any further tonight. He stared at the screen, effectively ending the conversation, dismissing me, dismissing my concerns, treating me like I was being irrational and emotional and unreasonable. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was seeing things that were not there. Maybe those flowers really were just a thoughtful gesture, and I was destroying my marriage over nothing. But as I stood there watching my husband ignore me, watching him shut down and shut me out, I knew in my bones that something was very wrong. Those flowers had not been innocent. That card had not been casual, and Michael's reaction had not been the reaction of an innocent man. It had been the reaction of a man who had something to hide. I turned and walked upstairs to our bedroom, my wine glass still in my hand, sat on the edge of the bed we had shared for more than 2 decades. And I made a decision. If Michael was having an affair, I was going to find out, not by asking him, not by hoping he would tell me the truth, but by looking for evidence, by being smart and careful and strategic, because those flowers had been a message. Just not the one Jessica intended. They had woken me up, opened my eyes, made me see what I had been refusing to see. And now that I was awake, I was not going to go back to sleep. What I did not know yet was just how deep the betrayal went, how many lies I would uncover, how much my life was about to change. But I was about to find out. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Michael, listening to his steady breathing, and wondered how many other nights he had slept peacefully while I remained oblivious to his lies. He had come upstairs around midnight, undressed quietly in the dark, and climbed into bed without a word. Within minutes, he was asleep, or pretending to be. I stared at the ceiling and thought about what I knew and what I needed to know. The flowers were circumstantial. The card was suggestive but not proof. Michael's reaction had been defensive, but that could mean anything. If I was going to accuse my husband of infidelity, if I was going to blow up my marriage and my life, I needed to be certain. I needed evidence. The next morning, Michael left for work at 7, same as always. He kissed me on the cheek in the kitchen, poured his coffee into a travel mug, and told me he would probably be late again. Some people might think his calmness was proof of innocence. I thought it was proof he had done this before, lied before, gotten away with it before. "What time do you think you will be home?" I asked, handing him his briefcase. "Not sure. Probably around 9 or 10. We have that presentation for the board tomorrow, so the team is pulling a late night." The team. Always the team. Never just Jessica. Will Jessica be there? I kept my voice light, curious, rather than accusatory. Probably. She coordinates most of the presentation materials. He checked his watch. Why? Just wondering. She seems very dedicated. Michael looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to read my mood, trying to figure out if last night's argument was over or if I was still suspicious. "She is a good employee," he said finally. "Nothing more, Claire. I never said she was." He kissed me again, this time on the forehead, and headed toward the garage. I stood at the kitchen window and watched his car back down the driveway, watched him drive away toward whatever truth I was about to discover. Then I went upstairs to his home office. Michael had always kept his work computer locked, but I knew his passwords. Not because I had snooped, but because for years he had asked me to check his email when he was traveling or pull up documents he needed. He trusted me. Or he had trusted me. Now I was about to betray that trust, and I felt a strange mixture of guilt and justification. I sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. The password screen appeared. I typed in Emma 2001, our daughter's name and birth year, access denied. I tried Morrison 22, the year we got married, access denied. Then I tried Hartfield 2023, his company and the current year. The screen unlocked. My hands hovered over the keyboard. This was the moment. Once I started looking, once I invaded his privacy this way, there would be consequences. Even if I found nothing, even if I was completely wrong, the act of searching would change something between us. Trust, once broken, was hard to repair. But those flowers sat downstairs on the dining room table, and that card with its careful words haunted me. "Thank you for sharing, Michael. His late nights mean the world." I opened his email. The inbox was exactly what I expected. Work emails. Lots of them. Messages about meetings and reports and strategy sessions. I scrolled through, looking for anything from Jessica. Found dozens of messages, all professional, all appropriate, meeting times. Attached documents. Requests for signatures on various forms. Nothing incriminating. I checked his sent folder. More of the same. Brief replies to her emails. "Thanks. Looks good. Please reschedule for Tuesday. Can you print 3 copies for the board?" Maybe I really was imagining things. Then I noticed something. The email time stamps. Most of Michael's correspondence with Jessica happened during normal business hours, 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening, but there were gaps. Long gaps where there should have been email exchanges, but weren't. Days when they must have been communicating, but left no digital trail, which meant they were deleting messages. Or using a different method of communication. I opened a new browser window and navigated to his phone account. We had a family plan, and I was listed as an authorized user. I logged in and pulled up Michael's call and text records for the past 3 months. What I found made my stomach drop. Hundreds of text messages, between Michael's number and a number I did not recognize, starting around 6 months ago. Just a few messages a week, then more frequent, then daily, multiple times a day. Late at night, early in the morning, on weekends. I could not see the content of the messages, just that they existed. But the pattern told me everything I needed to know. This was not a professional relationship. Professionals did not text each other at 11 at night. At 6 in the morning. On Sunday afternoons, I grabbed my phone and called the number. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. "Hi, you have reached Jessica. I cannot take your call right now, but please leave a message and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Jessica." I ended the call without leaving a message. Sat there in Michael's office chair, staring at the phone records on the screen. Hundreds of texts. Late nights, early mornings, while I had been sleeping, while I had been making dinner, while I had been living my life, thinking everything was fine. My husband had been texting another woman, but people might say texts could mean anything. He could claim they were work-related, that I was still jumping to conclusions. I needed more. I opened his calendar, looked at the past 6 months of appointments. Most were clearly labeled: board meeting, lunch with Marcus, Hendricks presentation, but scattered throughout were blocked off times with no description, just gray squares in his schedule, usually in the evenings, sometimes on weekends, usually 2 or 3 hours long. I cross-referenced the blank calendar entries with his text message pattern. Every single one coincided with a spike in messages to Jessica's number. Still not enough. Still circumstantial. Then I thought about something. Michael had a company credit card that he used for business expenses. The statements came to our home, but he always reviewed them first, checking off items before filing them away in his office cabinet. I walked over to the filing cabinet and opened the drawer labeled Financial 2023. I pulled out the credit card statements for the past 6 months and spread them across his desk. And there it was. The truth I had been looking for and dreading to find. Charges at restaurants I had never been to, always on the nights when his calendar was blocked off. Always for 2 people, based on the amounts. Dinner at the Riverview Grill, $87. Drinks at the Sapphire Lounge, $43. Lunch at Giovanni's, $65. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the hotel charges. The Riverside Inn, the Hampton House, the Marriott Downtown, charges ranging from $150 to $250. Always on Thursday evenings. Always on the nights he said he was working late. I counted 7 hotel charges over the past 4 months. 7 times my husband had taken Jessica to a hotel. 7 times he had lied to my face. 7 times he had come home and climbed into bed next to me after being with her. I sat back in the chair, the credit card statements in my hands, and felt something break inside me. Not my heart. Exactly. My heart would break later. This was something else. This was the shattering of the story I had been telling myself about my life. The story where Michael and I were partners, where we were solid, where 22 years of marriage meant something. That story was a lie. I thought about all the times he had looked me in the eye and said he was working late. All the times I had believed him without question. All the times I had defended him to friends who suggested he worked too much. He is dedicated, I would say. He is building something important. What he had been building was a relationship with a woman half his age. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Coffee this afternoon. I have news about Daniel's promotion." I stared at the message. Rachel's life was moving forward. Promotions and plans and normal married couple things. Meanwhile, my life was imploding in my husband's home office, while I sat surrounded by evidence of his affair. I texted back, "Can you come over instead? I need to talk." Her response came immediately. "On my way, 20 minutes. I gathered up the credit card statements and took photos of each one with my phone. Then I photographed the phone records showing all the texts to Jessica's number. I documented everything, creating a digital file of evidence, because I knew Michael. I knew he would deny everything if he could. He would claim I was misunderstanding, overreacting, making something out of nothing. But these were not nothing. These were hotel rooms and secret dinners and hundreds of hidden texts. These were a betrayal so complete, it took my breath away. By the time Rachel arrived, I had organized everything into a folder. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "What happened?" she asked. I led her to the kitchen table and showed her the flowers first. Then the card. Then I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I had taken. Rachel went through each one, her expression growing darker. When she finished, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Oh, Claire. I am so sorry." "I was right," I said, and my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. "Those flowers were a message. She wanted me to know. Or she is stupid enough to think you would not figure it out." Rachel set down my phone. "How long do you think this has been going on?" "Based on the phone records, at least 6 months, maybe longer. And you had no idea." I thought about that. Had there been signs I missed? Moments when I could have seen the truth if I had been looking. "He was working late more often," I said slowly, "starting last spring. And he seemed distant sometimes, distracted. But I thought it was just work stress. I thought he was tired." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Turns out he was tired, just not from work." Rachel reached across the table and took my hand. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." I had been so focused on finding evidence, on confirming my suspicions, that I had not thought beyond that moment. Confront him, I guess. Though I am not sure what good it will do. He will probably just lie again. "You need a lawyer," Rachel said, "before you confront him. Before he knows you know, you need to protect yourself financially." A lawyer? The word felt foreign. Lawyers meant divorce. Divorce meant the end of my marriage, the end of everything I had built over 2 decades. "Claire, listen to me." Rachel's voice was firm but gentle. "Michael has been lying to you for months. He has been spending money on hotels and dinners with another woman, money that belongs to both of you. You need to make sure he does not drain your accounts or hide assets before you file. File for divorce." I said the words out loud, testing how they felt. They felt like grief. "Do you want to stay married to someone who would do this to you?" Did I? 22 years ago, I had stood in a church and promised to love Michael in good times and bad, in sickness and health, until death do us part. Those vows were supposed to mean something. Marriage was supposed to be permanent. But Michael had broken his vows first. He had lied and cheated and betrayed everything we had built together. He had made a choice every time he texted Jessica, every time he took her to a hotel, every time he came home and kissed me on the cheek while hiding his affair. He had chosen her over me, and now I had to choose what to do next. "I need time to think," I said finally. "This is all happening so fast." "I understand." Rachel squeezed my hand. "But promise me you will call a lawyer this week. Even if you are not sure what you want to do, just get advice. Understand your options." "Okay," I agreed. "I promise." After Rachel left, I sat alone in my kitchen and thought about the woman I had been yesterday morning. That woman had been chopping vegetables and planning dinner, secure in her marriage, unaware of the truth. That woman was gone now. In her place was someone harder, more cynical. Someone who had learned that the person you trust most in the world can be the person who hurts you most deeply. I looked at the flowers still sitting on the dining room table. White roses that had seemed beautiful yesterday now looked like a funeral arrangement. A death of innocence. A memorial to a marriage that no longer existed. My phone buzzed again. A text from Michael, meeting running long, probably not home until 10:30. Sorry. He was sorry, but not sorry enough to stop lying. Not sorry enough to come home. Not sorry enough to end his affair. I typed back, "Okay, see you tonight." But what Michael did not know was that tonight would be different. Tonight, I would not be the trusting wife who believed his excuses. Tonight, I would be the woman who knew the truth. And soon, very soon, I would decide what to do with that truth. Because those flowers had been a warning, but they had also been a gift. They had opened my eyes, made me see clearly for the first time in months. And now that I could see, I was not going to look away. The law office of Patricia Chen was located in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel, and the kind of understated elegance that spoke of expensive hourly rates. I sat in the waiting room on Thursday morning, my hands clutched around my purse, trying not to think about the fact that I was here, that this was really happening. Rachel had recommended Patricia. She handled my cousin's divorce. She had told me over the phone, tough as nails, but fair. You need someone like that. I had called the next day and made an appointment. Told the receptionist I needed to discuss a confidential matter. Did not use the word divorce. Could not bring myself to say it out loud yet. The receptionist smiled at me from behind her desk. Miss Chen will see you now, Mrs. Morrison. I followed her down a hallway lined with abstract art and into a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Patricia Chen stood up from behind her desk to greet me. She was in her early 50s, I guessed, with sharp features and gray-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a navy suit that looked expensive and a smile that looked practiced. Mrs. Morrison, please sit down. She gestured to one of the leather chairs across from her desk. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? Water would be good. Thank you. She poured water from a glass pitcher into a crystal tumbler and handed it to me. Then she sat down, pulled out a legal pad, and looked at me with eyes that had probably seen every kind of marital disaster imaginable. So, she said, tell me why you are here. I opened my purse and pulled out the folder I had prepared, the credit card statements, the phone records, photos of the flowers in the card. I had spent 3 days organizing everything, making sure I had documentation for everything I suspected. I believe my husband is having an affair with his secretary, I said. I have evidence. Patricia went through the folder slowly, methodically, making notes on her legal pad. She did not react to anything she saw. No shock, no sympathy, no judgment. Just clinical assessment of facts. When she finished, she looked up at me. This is solid evidence of an affair. Hotels, restaurants, excessive communication. How long have you been married? 22 years. Children? 1 daughter, Emma. She is 23, just finished graduate school. She lives in Boston now. Property? We own our home. It is worth about $800,000. We have about $150,000 left on the mortgage. We also have a lake house in Wisconsin, worth maybe $400,000, fully paid off. 2 cars, both paid off. Retirement accounts, savings, some stock investments. Patricia made notes. Do you work? I am a marketing consultant. I work from home mostly. I make about $60,000 a year, sometimes more depending on projects. And your husband's income, around $300,000 plus bonuses. Last year, his total compensation was close to $400,000. Joint accounts are separate? We have a joint checking account and joint savings, but Michael also has accounts I do not have access to. His retirement fund through work. His stock options. I am not sure exactly what else. Patricia nodded. That is common. In a divorce, we would petition for full financial disclosure. Force him to reveal all assets. Illinois is an equitable distribution state, which means assets are divided fairly but not necessarily equally. Given the length of your marriage and the income disparity, you would likely be entitled to a significant portion of marital assets, plus spousal support. The word divorce hung between us, like a physical presence. I have not decided yet if I want a divorce, I said quietly. Patricia set down her pen and looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. Mrs. Morrison, I understand this is difficult, but I need you to think about something. Your husband has been conducting an affair for at least 6 months. He has been spending marital funds on hotels and dinners with another woman. He has lied to you repeatedly. Do you really think this marriage is salvageable? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me thinks I should try. For Emma. For all the years we have been together. Marriage is supposed to be work, right? You are supposed to fight for it. Marriage is work, Patricia agreed. But it takes two people willing to do that work. Is your husband willing? I thought about Michael's face when I had confronted him about the flowers. The way he had dismissed my concerns, turned on the television, shut me out. That was not the behavior of someone willing to work on a marriage. I don't think so, I said. Then you need to protect yourself. Even if you decide to try counseling or give him a chance to end the affair, you need to be prepared for the possibility that this marriage is over, and that means understanding your legal rights and your financial situation. She pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and wrote down a list. Here is what I need you to do. First, open a bank account in your name only. Transfer a reasonable amount of money from your joint accounts. Not everything, just enough to live on for a few months. Second, make copies of all financial documents, tax returns, bank statements, investment account statements, mortgage documents, everything. Third, change your passwords on all personal accounts, email, phone, computer. Do not give him access to your communications. Fourth, document everything, every lie, every late night, every interaction. Keep a journal with dates and details. You want me to spy on my husband? I want you to protect yourself. If this goes to court, documentation matters. Evidence matters. Your feelings and suspicions are not enough. You need facts. I took the list from her, my hand shaking slightly. This felt so calculated, so cold, but Patricia was right. I needed to be smart about this. What about confronting him? I asked, should I tell him I know? Patricia considered this. That depends on what you want. If you want to try to save the marriage, then yes, you need to confront him. But do it from a position of strength. Do it after you have secured your finances and gathered your documentation. Do not give him time to hide assets or drain accounts. And if I want a divorce, then you file first. Catch him off guard. Often the spouse who files first has a strategic advantage. They control the narrative, set the tone of the proceedings. I felt sick. This was my marriage we were talking about. 22 years of my life. And now I was sitting in a lawyer's office discussing strategy and positioning and financial protection like it was a business transaction. But maybe that was what marriage became, in the end. A contract. A legal agreement that could be dissolved with the right paperwork and the right lawyer. How long does a divorce take? I asked. In Illinois, minimum of 6 months if it is uncontested. Longer if there are disputes over assets, or if he fights it, could be a year or more. A year. A year of legal battles and negotiations, and sitting across from Michael in conference rooms while lawyers argued over who got the lake house and the retirement accounts. I could not imagine it. Could not picture myself as a divorced woman. Could not envision a life without Michael in it, even though he had already left our marriage in every way that mattered. I need time to think, I said. This is all happening so fast. I understand. But do not wait too long. Every day that passes is another day he could be hiding money or making plans of his own. If you decide you want to move forward, call me. We will file immediately. I stood up to leave, folder in hand. Patricia walked me to the door. Mrs. Morrison, she said. One more thing. Do not tell anyone what you are planning. Not your friends, not your family, and especially not your husband. The element of surprise is one of your biggest advantages. Use it wisely. I nodded and left her office, stepping out into the bright October afternoon. The city moved around me, people hurrying to lunch meetings and appointments, living their normal lives. I felt disconnected from all of it, like I was watching the world from behind glass. I sat in my car in the parking garage for a long time before I started the engine, thought about everything Patricia had told me. The accounts I needed to open, the documents I needed to copy, the journal I needed to start keeping. It all felt so deliberate, so premeditated, like I was planning a war. But maybe that was exactly what this was. A war. And Michael had fired the first shot the moment he decided to betray our marriage vows. I drove home slowly, taking side streets instead of the highway. putting off the moment when I would have to walk into the house I shared with my husband and pretend everything was normal. When I finally pulled into our driveway, Michael's car was already there. He was home early. I checked the time. 3:30 in the afternoon. He never came home this early on a weekday. Something was wrong. I walked inside and found him in the living room, sitting on the couch with his phone in his hand. He looked up when I entered, and I saw something in his expression that made my stomach tighten. He knew, somehow, he knew. "Where were you?" he asked. His voice carefully neutral. "Running errands." "Why are you home so early?" "I got an interesting phone call today." He set his phone down on the coffee table. "From our credit card company. They said there was unusual activity on our account. Someone had requested copies of our statements going back 6 months. My heart stopped. I had been so careful, had not thought about the fact that requesting old statements might trigger an alert. "That is strange," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Maybe it was fraud?" That is what I thought too. Until I came home and checked my office, noticed that my filing cabinet had been disturbed, that certain documents were not quite where I left them. He stood up, his eyes fixed on me. "Want to tell me what you were looking for, Claire?" There was no point in lying. He knew, and suddenly I was tired of pretending, tired of playing games, tired of being the wife who did not know anything while everyone else seemed to know everything. "I was looking for proof," I said. "And I found it." His face went pale. "Proof of what?" "Don't do that. Don't insult me by pretending you do not know what I am talking about." I walked to the dining room and grabbed the folder I had left on the table, brought it back and dropped it in front of him. Jessica, the hotels, the dinners, the hundreds of text messages. "I know everything, Michael." He stared at the folder like it was a bomb that might explode. Then he looked up at me, and I saw something I had never seen before in my husband's eyes. Fear. "It is not what you think," he said. "Really? Then what is it?" "Because to me, it looks like you have been sleeping with your secretary for the past 6 months while lying to my face every single day." "I haven't been sleeping with her." The words came out fast, defensive. "We are just friends. She is going through a difficult time, and I have been helping her through it." I laughed, but it sounded harsh even to my own ears. "You take all your friends to hotels? You text all your friends at midnight? You spend hundreds of dollars on dinners with all your friends?" "Claire, listen to me." He stood up, reaching for my hand. I stepped back. "Nothing physical has happened. I swear to you, we have just been talking. That is all. Stop lying." The words burst out of me, louder than I intended. "I have the credit card statements. I have the phone records. I know you took her to hotels 7 times. 7 times, Michael. What were you doing in those hotel rooms if not sleeping with her?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I knew meant he was trying to figure out what to say. What lie would work? What explanation I might believe? "We needed somewhere private to talk," he said finally. "She was having problems with her boyfriend, and she did not want anyone at the office to know, so we would meet at hotels, just in the lobby or the restaurant, and talk. You rented rooms for privacy." "We never—" He stopped, swallowed. "Nothing happened. I don't believe you." "It is the truth." I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I had loved for more than 2 decades. This man I had trusted with my life, my future, my heart, and I saw a stranger. Someone I did not know at all. "Even if I believed you," I said quietly, "even if nothing physical happened, you still betrayed me. You spent months texting another woman, taking her to dinners, meeting her secretly, lying to me about where you were. That is still cheating, Michael. Emotional infidelity is still infidelity." He sat back down, his head in his hands. "I am sorry. I know I screwed up, but it is over now. I ended it. When? Yesterday. After you asked about the flowers, I realized how it looked, how wrong it was. I told Jessica we needed to keep things strictly professional from now on." You ended a 6-month affair? Because I got suspicious? Not because it was wrong? Not because you love me? He looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes, but I could not tell if they were real or just another manipulation. I do love you, he said. I have always loved you. This thing with Jessica, it just happened. I did not plan it. She was young and fun, and she made me feel, well, she stopped. What? I asked. What did she make you feel? Young, he whispered. She made me feel young again, important, interesting. Not just someone's husband or someone's boss. She saw me differently. And there it was, the truth I had been avoiding. My husband had an affair not because I was a bad wife, not because our marriage was failing, but because he was 52 years old and afraid of getting older, because a woman in her 20s paid attention to him and made him feel special. He had blown up our marriage because of his ego. I want you to leave, I said. What? Get out. Pack a bag and get out of this house. Tonight. Claire, come on. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. I will do whatever you want, but please do not throw away 22 years because of one mistake. One mistake. I felt my voice rising again. This was not one mistake. This was 6 months of deliberate choices. 6 months of lies. Every time you told me you were working late, that was a choice. Every time you texted her instead of talking to me, that was a choice. Every time you took her to a hotel, that was a choice. Do not call it one mistake. He stood up, reaching for me again. Please, let me fix this. You cannot fix this. You cannot take back 6 months of lies. You cannot undo what you did. So that is it? You are just giving up? After everything we have been together? I am not the one who gave up, I said, my voice breaking. You gave up when you decided she was more important than me. You gave up when you chose to lie. I am just accepting reality. Michael looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly and headed upstairs. I heard him moving around in our bedroom, opening drawers, packing clothes. It felt surreal, like watching a scene from someone else's life. 20 minutes later, he came back downstairs with a duffel bag. He stopped in the living room doorway, looking at me like he wanted to say something, like maybe there were words that could fix this. But there weren't. Some things, once broken, could not be put back together. I will be at the Marriott downtown, he said finally. When you are ready to talk, call me. I did not respond, just watched him walk out the door, heard his car start in the driveway, listened as the engine sound faded into the distance. Then I was alone in the house that had been our home for 15 years. Alone with the silence and the evidence of his betrayal and the shattered pieces of my marriage. I should have felt triumphant. I had confronted him, thrown him out, taken control of the situation the way Patricia had advised. But all I felt was empty. I walked upstairs to our bedroom and looked at the space where Michael had been packing. Drawers left open. Hangers askew in the closet. Evidence of a hasty departure. I sat down on the edge of the bed and let myself cry for the first time since this all began. Cried for the marriage I thought I had. Cried for the trust that was broken. Cried for the future I had imagined that would never exist now. And somewhere in the midst of that crying, something shifted. The grief began to harden into something else. Something stronger. Determination. Michael thought he could lie and cheat, and then come back with apologies and promises to do better. He thought I would forgive him, because that is what wives do. That is what 22 years of marriage obligated me to do. But he was wrong. I wiped my eyes and pulled out my phone. Found Patricia Chen's number and sent a text. I am ready. File the papers. Her response came quickly. I will have them ready by Monday. Do not change your mind. I would not change my mind. Not about this. Not anymore. Because those flowers had done more than reveal an affair. They had revealed who my husband really was, and who I needed to become. The divorce papers were served to Michael, At his office on Wednesday morning, Patricia had coordinated with a professional process server who walked right past Jessica's desk and handed Michael the envelope while he was in a meeting with his team. I had not asked for those details, but Patricia told me anyway. Maximum impact, she had said with a slight smile. Let him know you mean business. I did not feel good about humiliating him at work, but I also did not feel bad. He had made his choices. Now he had to live with the consequences. Emma called me that evening, her voice tight with shock. Mom, what is happening? Dad just called me crying, saying you are divorcing him. He said it is all a misunderstanding. I closed my eyes and took a breath. I had wanted to tell Emma myself, in person, when the time was right. But of course, Michael had gotten to her first. Of course he had positioned himself as the victim. It is not a misunderstanding, sweetheart, I said. Your father had an affair. I have proof. I am not willing to stay in a marriage with someone who betrayed my trust like that. Silence on the other end of the line. Then an affair? Dad, are you sure? I am sure. I have credit card statements showing hotel rooms, phone records showing hundreds of texts. I found everything, Emma. Oh my God. Her voice was small now, like a child's. With who? His secretary. Jessica. That young woman who sent you flowers? Yes. More silence. I could hear Emma processing this, trying to reconcile the father she knew with the man who would do something like this. Why didn't you tell me before filing? She asked finally. Why didn't you give him a chance to fix it? I did give him a chance. I confronted him. He lied to my face. Told me nothing physical happened, that they were just friends, but the evidence says otherwise. And even if nothing physical happened, he still spent 6 months lying to me, sneaking around with another woman, spending our money on her. I just cannot believe Dad would do this. Emma's voice cracked. You guys always seemed so solid, so happy. I thought we were too, but I was wrong, or maybe I just was not paying attention. I don't know anymore. What happens now? Now we go through the divorce process. It will take several months. Your father will have to disclose all his finances. We will divide our assets, and then we will move on with our lives. Are you okay, Mom? The question surprised me, not because Emma asked it, but because I did not know how to answer. Was I okay? I had kicked my husband out of our home, filed for divorce, started the process of dismantling 22 years of marriage. I should have been devastated, broken, unable to function. But instead, I felt clear-headed, focused, like I had been sleepwalking through my life and was finally awake. I am going to be okay, I told her. It hurts right now, but I will get through this. I am coming home this weekend, Emma said. You should not be alone. You don't have to do that, sweetie. You have work. Mom, my parents are getting divorced. I am coming home. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet house and thought about how affairs destroy more than just marriages. They destroy families. They force children to take sides, to question everything they thought they knew about their parents. Emma would carry this with her forever. The knowledge that her father was capable of betrayal, that her mother was capable of walking away, that the stable family she grew up in had been built on lies. Michael had not just betrayed me, he had betrayed our daughter too. My phone buzzed. The text from an unknown number. This is Jessica. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long moment. The audacity of this woman. After everything she had done, she wanted to talk to me? I typed back, "We have nothing to discuss." Her response came immediately. "Please, I need to explain. It is not what you think. I know exactly what it is. Stay away from me and stay away from my husband. He is not yours. He told me you were separated, that you had an arrangement." I did not know he was lying. I felt rage rise up in my chest. Michael had told her we were separated, that we had an arrangement. What other lies had he told this girl? We were never separated. We had no arrangement. My husband lied to you just like he lied to me. But you are old enough to know better than to believe a married man who says his wife does not understand him. A long pause. Then I am sorry. I never meant to hurt you, but you did hurt me, and sorry does not fix that. Do not contact me again. I blocked her number and threw my phone onto the couch. My hands were shaking. Part of me wanted to know more, wanted to ask her when it started, how it started, what Michael had told her about me. But I knew that path led nowhere good. Knowing the details would not change anything, would not undo the damage, would only give me more painful memories to carry. The doorbell rang. I was not expecting anyone. For a moment I considered not answering, but then I thought it might be Emma, having caught an earlier flight. I opened the door to find a woman in her late 60s standing on my porch. She had perfectly styled silver hair and wore an expensive pantsuit. I recognized her immediately. Michael's mother, Diane. "Hello, Claire," she said, her voice cool and controlled. "May I come in?" I had not seen Diane since Christmas. We had never been particularly close. She was the type of mother-in-law who made subtle comments about how I raised Emma, how I kept house, how I was not quite good enough for her son. But we had maintained a polite relationship for Michael's sake. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. She walked into my living room and sat down on the sofa without being invited. I sat across from her, waiting. "Michael called me," she said. "He told me you filed for divorce, that you are accusing him of having an affair." "I am not accusing him. He did have an affair. I have proof." Diane waved her hand dismissively. "Men make mistakes, Claire. They get distracted. It does not mean anything." I felt my jaw tighten. "It means something to me. You have been married for 22 years. You have a daughter together, a life together. You are going to throw all that away because Michael got a little too friendly with some girl at his office?" "He did more than get friendly. He took her to hotels, spent months lying to me, spent our money on her. So he made a mistake. So what? You think you are going to find someone better at your age? You think it is easy to start over?" Her words hit like slaps. This was what she really thought. That I should be grateful for Michael. That I should accept his betrayal because I was too old to find anyone else. That my marriage was more valuable than my self-respect. "I would rather be alone than be with someone who lies to me," I said quietly. "That is very noble, very feminist. But when you are sitting alone in this house, 5 years from now while Michael has moved on with someone younger, you are going to regret this decision." "Maybe, but at least I will have my dignity." Diane stood up, smoothing her skirt. "You are making a mistake, Claire. Michael loves you. He wants to work things out, but you are being stubborn and vindictive." "I am being stubborn. He is the one who had an affair, and he apologized. What more do you want? I want a husband who does not cheat on me." Apparently that is too much to ask. Diane looked at me with something like pity. "You always were too sensitive, too emotional. Michael needs someone who understands him, who can forgive his flaws. Then maybe he should have married someone else." She walked to the door, then turned back. "When this divorce costs you everything, when you lose half your assets and your lifestyle and your social standing, remember that I tried to talk sense into you." After she left, I sat in stunned silence. That was what Michael's family thought. That I was being unreasonable, that I should forgive and forget, because that is what wives do. That my feelings did not matter as much as maintaining the appearance of a happy marriage, but I had spent 22 years maintaining appearances, pretending everything was fine when I was lonely, accepting Michael's long hours and missed dinners and emotional distance because that is what a good wife does. I had made myself smaller and quieter and more accommodating, all in the name of being reasonable. I was done being reasonable. Emma arrived on Saturday morning. She hugged me at the door, holding on longer than usual. "How are you really doing, Mom?" "I am managing," I said. "Come in." I made coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, and I told her everything, showed her the credit card statements and the phone records. Explained how I had discovered the affair, what Michael had said when I confronted him, why I decided to file for divorce. Emma listened without interrupting, her face growing more troubled as I spoke. "I cannot believe he lied about being separated," she said finally. "That is just cruel. To you and to her. He told her what he needed to tell her to keep the affair going. That is what cheaters do. Have you talked to him since he moved out?" "He has called a few times, texted, asking me to reconsider, but I have not responded. My lawyer told me to keep all communication through her office from now on." "What about the house? Your finances?" "Patricia is handling all of that. Michael will have to disclose everything and then we will negotiate a settlement. Illinois is an equitable distribution state, so I should get close to half of everything, plus spousal support, since he makes so much more than I do." Emma nodded slowly. "I talked to Dad yesterday. He sounds terrible. Says he made the biggest mistake of his life." "He did. He wants to see you, to apologize in person. There is nothing he can say that will change my mind." "I know, but maybe you should let him try. Maybe you need closure." I thought about that. Did I need closure? Or would seeing Michael just reopen wounds that were barely starting to scab over? "Maybe," I said, "but not yet. I am not ready." Emma reached across the table and took my hand. "I am proud of you, Mom. I know this is hard, but you are doing the right thing. You deserve better than what Dad gave you." Her words brought tears to my eyes. I had been so worried about how Emma would react, whether she would blame me for breaking up our family, but here she was supporting me, believing me, standing with me. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means more than you know." We spent the rest of the weekend together, doing normal things, going to the movies, shopping for groceries, making dinner, having the kind of easy companionship I had not felt in months, maybe years. It reminded me that life would go on after divorce, that I could be happy without Michael, that I was more than just someone's wife. On Monday morning, Patricia called with an update. Michael's lawyer filed a response to our petition. They are not contesting the divorce, but they are pushing back on the asset division. They claim you are asking for too much. What did we ask for? Half of all marital assets, including his retirement accounts and stock options, plus spousal support of $5,000 per month for 5 years. That seems reasonable given how long we were married. It is extremely reasonable. But Michael seems to think he should keep most of his retirement because he earned it. His lawyer is arguing that your contribution to the marriage was minimal since you only worked part-time. I felt anger flare again. Minimal contribution? I had raised our daughter, managed our household, supported Michael's career by handling everything at home so he could focus on work. I had sacrificed my own career advancement to be available for Emma's school events and doctor appointments and everything else that kept a family running. And now he was claiming I had contributed minimally? "Fight it," I told Patricia. "I want what I am entitled to. I earned those assets just as much as he did." "I agree. We will push back hard, but be prepared for this to get contentious. When money is involved, divorces can turn ugly fast. Let it get ugly. I am done being accommodating." Over the next few weeks, the divorce process consumed my life. There were depositions and financial disclosures and back-and-forth negotiations between lawyers. Michael had, as Patricia predicted, tried to hide assets. He claimed he had lost money in bad investments, said his bonus was smaller than it actually was, forgot to mention a separate bank account he had opened 6 months ago. But Patricia caught everything. She was relentless, demanding documentation for every claim Michael made, cross-referencing bank statements and tax returns until she had a complete picture of our finances. What she found shocked me. Michael had been siphoning money from our joint account for over a year. Small amounts at first, a few $100s here and there, but in the past 6 months, he had withdrawn nearly $40,000. When Patricia confronted his lawyer about it, Michael claimed it was for business expenses, but the credit card statements told a different story. The money had gone to restaurants and hotels and gifts for Jessica. He had been stealing from our marriage to fund his affair. "This is good for us," Patricia said during one of our meetings. "It shows pattern of deception and financial misconduct. The judge will not look kindly on that." "I do not care about winning," I said. "I just want what is fair. Winning is getting what is fair. And Michael has done everything possible to avoid giving you that." By December, 3 months after I had filed, we were no closer to a settlement. Michael's lawyer kept making lowball offers. $50,000, and I keep the house. No spousal support because I was capable of working full-time. None of his retirement accounts because they were premarital assets, which was a lie. Patricia rejected every offer and continued building our case. Then, in early January, something shifted. Michael's lawyer called Patricia and said they wanted to negotiate in good faith. They had a new offer, one that was actually reasonable. We met in a conference room downtown. Michael sat across from me, looking older than I remembered, thinner, tired. He would not meet my eyes. His lawyer laid out the terms. I would get the house and 40% of all retirement accounts. Michael would pay spousal support of $4,000 per month for 3 years. We would split the proceeds from selling the lake house. All existing debts would be divided equally. It was not perfect. I had wanted more, but it was fair, and I was tired of fighting. "I will take it," I said. Patricia nodded. "We will draw up the papers." Michael finally looked at me. "Claire, I am sorry for everything. I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed what we had, but I hope someday you can forgive me." I looked at him across that conference room table and felt nothing, not love, not hate, not even anger anymore, just a kind of detached sadness for the life we could have had if he had made different choices. "I hope you figure out what you really want," I said, "before you hurt someone else the way you hurt me." We signed the papers 2 weeks later. 22 years of marriage dissolved with a judge's signature and some legal documents. Emma came with me to the courthouse, held my hand as we walked out into the winter sunlight. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Free," I said, and I meant it. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted, revealing brown grass and the promise of new growth. I watched from my kitchen window as the world transformed itself, and I realized I was transforming too. The divorce had been finalized in February. By March, Michael had moved his things out of the house completely. By April, I had redecorated the bedroom, painting over the pale blue walls we had chosen together and replacing them with a warm sage green. I had always loved, but Michael thought was too bold. The house felt different now, lighter, more mine. I had started working more, taking on bigger consulting projects. With the spousal support and my portion of our assets, I was financially secure for the first time in my life. Not wealthy, but comfortable, independent. I did not need anyone to take care of me. It was a revelation. Rachel came over one Saturday in late April with a bottle of wine and a mischievous smile. "I have news," she said. We sat on my back deck, the afternoon sun warm on our faces. Spring flowers were beginning to bloom in the garden beds. I had planted them myself, something I never had time for when I was married. "Tell me," I said. "I ran into Michael last week. At the grocery store." She paused dramatically. "He was with Jessica." I waited for the pain, the jealousy, the anger, but all I felt was a mild curiosity. "How did they look?" I asked. "Miserable, honestly." She had her hand on his arm like she was worried he might run away. He looked exhausted. They were arguing about something in the produce section. Arguing, I could not hear what they were saying, but the body language was clear. She was upset. He was defensive. They left without buying anything. I sipped my wine and considered this. Michael and Jessica together officially now, living the life they had started in secret. Except it turned out that affairs were much more fun when they were forbidden. when they were special secret meetings in hotel rooms, stolen moments of passion and excitement. Reality was different. Reality was grocery shopping and arguments, and realizing the person you thought was so perfect actually had flaws, just like everyone else. "Do you think they will last?" Rachel asked. "Does it matter? I guess not. I just want him to be as miserable as he made you." "I do not want him to be miserable," I said, surprising myself. "I just want him to understand what he lost, what he threw away, and I think he is starting to figure that out." "You are very mature about this. If Daniel cheated on me, I would burn his clothes." I laughed. "I thought about it, but it turns out the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is moving on, being happy, showing him that I do not need him." "Are you happy?" Rachel asked gently. I thought about the question. Was I happy? My marriage was over. My life plan had been derailed. Everything I thought I knew about my future had changed. But I was sleeping better, laughing more. I had started taking yoga classes, had coffee dates with friends I had neglected during my marriage. I was reading books I wanted to read, watching shows Michael would have hated, eating food he did not like. I was discovering who I was outside of being someone's wife, and that person was someone I actually liked. "I am getting there," I said. "I am not all the way happy yet, but I am okay." And that is more than I thought I would be 6 months ago. In May, Emma came home for a visit. She was seeing someone new, a man named Tyler, who worked in renewable energy. She was excited about her job, about her life in Boston, about the future. She seemed lighter, too, now that the divorce was behind us. "I have something to tell you," she said over dinner one evening. "I saw Dad last month." I set down my fork. "How is he?" "He wanted me to give you a message. He said to tell you he understands now what you meant about dignity and self-respect. He said he is sorry it took him so long to get it." "Is he still with Jessica?" Emma shook her head. "They broke up. She quit Hartfield and moved to California. Dad said it ended badly, that she blamed him for ruining her reputation at the company." I felt a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. Jessica had been young and foolish and had believed Michael's lies, but she had also made choices. Had sent those flowers knowing exactly what message they carried. Had participated in destroying my marriage. Now she was paying the price too. A ruined career. A failed relationship. The knowledge that she had been lied to just like I had been. "How is he handling it?" I asked. "Not well. He is lonely. He asked about you. Wanted to know if you were seeing anyone." "What did you tell him?" "I told him it was none of his business, that you were doing great, and that is all he needed to know." Emma smiled. He did not like that. "I am not seeing anyone," I said. "I am not ready for that yet. Maybe I never will be, and that is okay." "You have plenty of time, Mom. You are only 50. You could meet someone amazing tomorrow, or I could meet no one and still have an amazing life. I spent 22 years being part of a couple. Maybe it is time to figure out who I am on my own." Emma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I think you are already figuring that out, and I am proud of you." In June, I ran into Jessica. I was at a coffee shop downtown, meeting a potential client to discuss a new marketing project. I arrived early and was reviewing my notes when I heard someone say my name. I looked up to find Jessica standing next to my table. She looked different than I remembered from the flowers she had probably posed with for some photo, thinner, older somehow. Despite her youth, she had dark circles under her eyes, and her clothes did not fit quite right, like she had lost weight recently and had not bothered to buy new things. "Claire," she said again, "I know you probably do not want to talk to me, but I saw you sitting here, and I just needed to say something." Every instinct told me to walk away, to refuse to engage, to protect myself from whatever manipulation or excuse she was about to offer. But I was curious, and I was no longer afraid of her. "Sit down," I said. She sat, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup like she needed something to hold on to. "I am so sorry," she said. the words tumbling out fast. For everything. For the affair. For the flowers. For believing his lies. I was stupid and selfish, and I hurt you for no good reason. You hurt me because you wanted my husband, I said calmly. There is no need to pretend otherwise. You are right. I wanted him. He made me feel special, important. He paid attention to me in a way no one else did, and I convinced myself that what we had was real, that he actually loved me. Did he? No, she laughed, but it sounded bitter. He loved the idea of me, the young woman who made him feel important, but he did not love me, because the moment things got difficult, the moment I wanted more than secret meetings and lies, he pulled away. He wanted the excitement without the commitment, the affair without the consequences. I said nothing, just listened. When I quit my job and moved to California, I thought he would follow me, that we would start over somewhere new. But he barely fought for me. He just let me go, like I never mattered at all. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. I destroyed your marriage and ruined my own career for a man who did not even care about me. You did not destroy my marriage, I said quietly. Michael did that. You were just the person he chose to do it with. If it had not been you, it would have been someone else. That does not make me feel better. It should not. You made choices. Bad choices. And now you have to live with them. Jessica wiped her eyes. Do you hate me? I thought about that question. Did I hate her? 6 months ago. Absolutely. But now, looking at this broken young woman who had believed a married man's promises, I felt something closer to pity. I do not hate you, I said. I do not really feel anything about you at all. You were a footnote in the end of my marriage, a catalyst maybe, but not the cause. I wish I could take it back. All of it. But you cannot. None of us can. We just have to figure out how to move forward. My client arrived then, saving me from continuing the conversation. Jessica stood up quickly. Thank you for talking to me, she said. I did not deserve your kindness. I did not do it for you, I said. I did it for me. After she left, I sat for a moment collecting my thoughts. Seeing Jessica had been strange, but not as painful as I expected. She was not the villain I had built her up to be in my mind. She was just a person who made terrible choices and was now living with the consequences, just like Michael, just like all of us, in our own ways. My meeting went well. The client loved my ideas and hired me on the spot for a 6-month project that would pay more than I had made all of last year. I left the coffee shop feeling energized, capable, powerful in a way I had not felt in decades. That evening, I sat on my back deck watching the sunset and thought about the past year, about how much had changed, how much I had changed. A year ago, I had been a wife who trusted too much, who believed her husband when he said he was working late, who accepted the scraps of attention he gave her, and convinced herself it was enough. That woman was gone now. In her place was someone stronger, someone who knew her worth, someone who would never again settle for less than she deserved. The flowers that had started everything sat in a photo on my phone. I had kept a picture of them, though I had thrown the actual arrangement away months ago. Sometimes I looked at that photo to remind myself of the moment my eyes opened, the moment I stopped being blind. Thank you for sharing, Michael, the card had said. But I was not sharing anymore. I was not accommodating or understanding or willing to overlook betrayal in the name of keeping the peace. I was free. In July, I decided to sell the lake house. It held too many memories of family vacations and happier times. I needed something that was just mine, something with no history of Michael attached to it. The realtor found a buyer within a week. A young couple with 2 small children who were thrilled at the idea of lakefront summers. I signed the papers and put my half of the proceeds into an investment account. With that money and my growing consulting income, I started looking at condos downtown, something smaller than the house, but in a better location, close to restaurants and theaters, and the kind of life I wanted to build. I found the perfect place in August, A two-bedroom condo on the 10th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. Modern kitchen. Balcony with a view. Space for a home office. I put in an offer and it was accepted. Emma came home to help me pack. We went through closets and drawers, sorting through decades of accumulated possessions. I got rid of so much, clothes I had not worn in years, dishes we had received as wedding gifts, books I would never read again. I was making space for something new. The day before I moved, I walked through the empty house one last time, stood in the living room where Michael had dismissed my concerns about the flowers, sat on the stairs where I had cried after kicking him out, looked out the kitchen window where I had watched the seasons change while my marriage crumbled. This house had been my home for 15 years, but it was not my home anymore. I locked the door behind me and drove away without looking back. The condo was everything I hoped it would be. Light and modern, and completely mine. I decorated it with art I loved and furniture I chose, and colors that made me happy. No compromises. No asking anyone else's opinion. Just me, creating a space that reflected who I was becoming. Rachel came to my housewarming party in September, along with a dozen other friends who had supported me through the divorce. We drank wine and ate good food and laughed until my face hurt. "To new beginnings," Rachel said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings." Everyone echoed. And I realized something as I looked around at these people who cared about me, who had stood by me during the hardest year of my life. I had spent so much time focused on what I had lost, the marriage, the life plan, the future I thought I would have, but I had gained so much more. I had gained myself back. The woman I was before I met Michael, before I learned to make myself smaller to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be, before I accepted scraps and called it love. I was that woman again, only stronger, wiser, more certain of what I wanted and what I would never accept again. In October, exactly 1 year after those flowers arrived on my doorstep, I went back to that coffee shop downtown, sat at the same table where I had met Jessica, ordered the same drink, and I thought about everything that had happened since that day. The pain and betrayal, the investigation and confrontation, the divorce and rebuilding, the slow, painful process of learning who I was outside of being Michael's wife. It had been the hardest year of my life. It had also been the best, because those flowers had not just revealed an affair, they had set me free. My phone buzzed, a text from Emma. "Just wanted to say I love you, Mom, and I am so proud of the woman you have become." I smiled and typed back. "I am proud of her too, and I meant it." I thought about Michael sometimes, wondered if he was happy, if he regretted his choices, if he ever lay awake at night thinking about what he had lost. But mostly, I did not think about him at all, because I was too busy living my life, building my business, strengthening my friendships, discovering new hobbies and interests and passions. I was too busy being happy. The flowers Jessica sent had been meant as a taunt, a subtle message that she knew something I did not, a way of marking her territory. But in the end, they had given me the greatest gift possible. They had given me back to myself. I finished my coffee and walked out into the bright October afternoon. The city moved around me, full of possibility and promise. My new life stretched ahead, unwritten and uncertain and absolutely mine. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I could not wait to see what came next, because I had learned something important through all of this, something that would stay with me forever. You cannot break a woman who has learned her own worth. You cannot destroy someone who has discovered her own strength. You cannot take away what matters most when that thing is the knowledge of who you are and what you deserve. Michael had thought he was clever, thought he could have his affair and his marriage too, thought I would never find out, or if I did, that I would forgive him, that I needed him too much to walk away. He had been wrong about all of it, and now I was living proof that betrayal does not have to destroy you, that endings can be beginnings, that the worst thing that ever happened to you can also be the thing that sets you free. Those flowers had changed everything, and I would never stop being grateful for them.